he once said, do you know why we recite poems? And he said, we recite poems because if we happen to find ourselves imprisoned, we'll need something to tell ourselves in order to get through.
Mhm.
And he was also walking with my husband one day, just out in the open somewhere, and they were looking up at some trees. And David said, Chris, do you know, he said, look up at the trees. When we all look up at the trees, we see the branches, but an artist sees the spaces between the branches. And that's David. I'm going to read a poem of his, because his love for music never faded, and we had endless conversations about music, Stokowski, the violin. And this is in his last book, and it's called Little Mass, and it was for John Haydick. When Bach lay in prison, he could see the fugues in flight. Each necessary note converged in an immense lack of mercy. When Bach lay in death's double bonds, he cried, God is insensitive. He is irresponsible to the rotten ornament that was the world. When Bach slept in the hospital, he could not stop seeing the ignoble voices. He could see his children out simplifying. Old Bach remembered his opponent refusing to play at all. When Bach lay imprisoned and improvising in the dark, he remembered each of his enemies and begged God not to forgive them.
Thanks, Tim. So we've got a bunch of readers, a few readers left. We've got, and I'm looking at the list that Joanna and I have been going back and forth. We've got Jim Perricone, Steve Ackerman, Lily Prince, and Susan Yelovich, and then we're going to close with Vincent Katz. So that's our final cast, I think. So Jim, you want to take it off? I think we unmuted you. Jim?
Still muted, but he should be able to unmute.
Okay. Jim, if you're having some trouble, we'll come back to you. Okay. So let's go to Steve Ackerman. Steve.
Yes, hi, thank you. Thank you to all, and condolences to David's family. I was a student of David's in the 70s at Columbia, and I have loved his poems for close to 50 years now. And David and Kenneth both are my most beloved teachers. David wrote a sequence of poems that feature a teacher, and I thought it would be appropriate to read the last section of Unwritten, and here it is. On the border of the illusion, at the very edge, Socrates said, "Let's go, Crito, obsess yourselves. You were a slave with tender hands and dwindled too. Sometimes we'll come back and give out poison. Now it's all boiled up and just as ready. One likes to drink and walk, and having drunk, you feel those heavy weights like a dog. The lips of Socrates were very peaceful then. You had your lips next to me drinking and having drunk. You covered up your closest friends with a mind. It was cut like sails with the same razor. It was ice and radiant, touching to be him. Now we owe a rooster. To forget it would be impossible. In a convulsive moment, time says time and closes your eyes.
Thanks, Steve.
I think Lily Prince now, and then
We'll jump back to Jim.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My sincerest condolences to Lindsay and Daniel and siblings and everyone here who feels such a tremendous loss. I just mostly want to say that David was sort of like a hero to me. I taught with him at William Patterson I was there for 30 years. And it was mostly a department filled with not the kindest people, I'll just say that. And David was like a knight on a shining white horse to me, you know. There was so much trouble I had, you know, the ups and downs of academia, and David was just always right there, sort of supporting me, helping me. He helped me get tenure. He was the one who stood up for me and fought for me. He was always just so kind and so generous to me, but also to so many painters, just collaborating with all of us. And I wanted to talk about a collaboration that we did together that was really one of the highlights of my entire career. But I do want to say that, you know, even in his classroom, his art history classes, he invited me to host a visiting artist program in his classes, which meant so much to me and to my students as well as to his. And he would give readings to his students. I must have heard his poems, you know, in those classrooms at William Patterson year after year, you know, just so many times. And they just were always so fresh and so poignant and so meaningful and so powerful hearing him read them in his voice. We had the opportunity, I don't know if anyone can really see this, I don't think so, to do this catalog together of a show of drawings that I did called The 10 Plagues. And I was doing these large charcoal drawings, and I called David up and I asked if he would like to contribute some poems, and we could do a catalog and do a show together. And we would, you know, blow up his poems and, you know, hang them next to my drawings. And he said, oh, you know, I would love to, but I don't know if I could come up with poems, 10 poems, you know, that quickly. And I said, well, that's okay, don't worry about it. And, you know, we hung up, and the next, I don't know, maybe 5 hours later, he called me back, and he had all 10 poems. So that's amazing. So I would like to just read the beginning, which was titled For Victims. They've used the bodies of children as improvised bridges, which they later cross. First the sun and the moon, then the earth comes in, but they have lost the atmosphere which belongs to them, light passers by. And he just mostly took pieces, you know, from all of his poems, and he paired them with each of my 10 plagues. And of course, my favorite line, I think ever, is, and so the snow fell and covered up poetry, which I know we've all referenced today. I just want to add that in addition to his incredible generosity, he was just the most fascinating, brilliant person. And he would just talk, as everyone's, you know, mentioned, endlessly, and words would flow out like music. And I would pass him in the hallway, and there would be this music from him. And I'd find postcards with stickers in my mailbox, and, you know, there'd be books signed by him, you know, with a little note to me in my mailbox. And it just made my life at William Patterson, which was really difficult for 3 decades, really not only bearable, but it was just a highlight, you know, and an honor to be his colleague. So I will miss him terribly. Lindsay and Daniel, my deepest sympathy.
And I think our next reader, we've got a couple of late additions, 1 or 2, but Susan, we got Susan And Jim, if we can find you, if you can get back to us. And then, sorry, Vincent, I was about to call you Alex. And then we're going to close with Joel Lewis. And then I think we're going to ask Lindsay and Daniel if they have anything they want to just throw our way. Okay. So Susan, please, Susan Yelovich. So Joanne is writing to me. Susan, Jim, Vincent, Joel, Lindsay, Daniel. Okay, here we go.
Well, I'm really honored to be included in this awesome gathering. And Lindsay, you have all my love. And it's Lindsay, it's through Lindsay that I came to David. I knew Lindsay from the years she was at the Institute, and then we worked together many years at Cooper Hewitt Museum, and our friendship has sustained that. And through Lindsay, of course, you get David. And David and I worked on the Jan Pollock show at Cooper Hewitt with John, and people have spoken about that amazing exhibition and project and poem, so I won't be redundant here. But since I feel like I'm coming from a little bit of left field, I'm not so intimate. I'm not a poet, but I'd like to pick someone else from the periphery to honor David with, and to honor all of you, actually. It's called The Joy of Writing by Wisława Szymborska, the Polish poet Nobel laureate. And it's meant to be a tribute from a woman to David. Why does this written doe bound through these written woods for a drink of written water from a spring? Whose surface will Xerox her soft muzzle? Why does she lift her head? Does she hear something? Perched on four slim legs, borrowed from the truth, she pricks up her ears beneath my fingertips. Silence. This word rustles across the page and parts the boughs that have sprouted from the word woods. Lying in wait, sent to pounce on the blank page, are letters up to no good. Clutches of clauses so subordinate, they'll never let her get away. Each drop of ink contains a fair supply of hunters equipped with squinting eyes behind their sights, prepared to swarm the sloping pen at any moment, surround the doe, and slowly aim their guns. They forget that what's here isn't life. Other laws, black on white, obtain. The twinkling of an eye will take as long as I say, and will, if I wish, divide into tiny eternities, full of bullets stopped in mid-flight. Not a thing will ever happen unless I say so. Without my blessing, not a leaf will fall. Not a blade of grass will bend beneath that little hoof's full stop. Is there then a world where I rule absolutely on fate? A time I bind with chains of signs, an existence become endless at my bidding. The joy of writing, the power of preserving, revenge of a mortal hand. And I think David's had its revenge.
Oh, Jim, you were unmuted, so I think you can speak now. Try this again. Oh, there. No, not sure what's going on, why it's not unmuting. Do you want to try?
Muted everybody. Let's get Jim back in. You got him?
He was unmuted. I don't know why he's now muted.
Wow. Jim, are you there?
You want to try? You have to unmute yourself. I don't know.
I think there might be a little bit of confusion. I'm not supposed to speak right now.
Oh, you're not? Oh, okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Wait, no. With Jim Perricone.
Oh, wrong Jim. That's the problem.
Right, Jim Perricone. But if not, we're just going to go into, maybe Jim had to leave. That might be just took too long. So it would be Vincent, Joel Lewis, and then Lindsay and Daniel, right? So Vincent, where are you?
Oh.
There you are. I'm unmuting you. There you go, brother. You all right?
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, great. Um, yeah, well, I want to express my condolences to Lindsay and Daniel and David's sisters and the rest of his family and friends. And I'd like to read two short things, one of which what Lily was saying reminded me or made me think about what I'd like to read, which in fact includes two of the same lines that she mentioned. And it's, I believe it may be for a film collaboration with Rudy Burkhart. In any case, this is something by David. It says for, and then it's kind of got the letterhead Rudolph Burkhart with his address. And then it says, this is a typescript, and then it says revisions. And then there are 5 short sections. And some of these lines you may remember from other poems of David's. And I find this kind of fascinating, the way he could feel the freedom to recycle his language and not feel that the poem was necessarily this sacred object that couldn't be reformulated in a different way. So here's this short, probably text for a film. And they did do, there's definitely another collaboration that David and Rudy did in which David's poem, When a Man Loves a Woman, is used. But this is something else. So revisions, 1, to the earth. I fell with my father through space, madly in love with the earth. 2, famished silk. 3, I cannot hold nor let you go. Could it be you know I'm still living, leashed to the hateful sky? 4, thin snow. And so the snow fell and covered up poetry. 5, for victims. They have used the bodies of children as improvised bridges, which they later cross. First the sun and the moon, then the earth comes in, but they have lost the atmosphere, which belongs to them. Light passers by. And then below that, it's typed David Shapiro. And then I'd like to read a poem from his book, A Burning Interior, which was published in 2002. Love Song, after Rilke. How could I stop myself from meeting you? Should I rise up over you to some other things? I could happily make a roof with someone abandoned in the dark in some dumb, distant spot that never shakes, as you are trembling now. Yet, everything that grazes you and me ties us together like a violin bow stroking 2 strings into one sound. But on what instrument have we been bound? And what musician has us in his hand? Oh, sweet song.
Thank you, Vincent. Joel?
Hi, thanks. Of course, wanted to send out my condolences to David's family and friends. And it's kind of amazing at this Shiva seeing for the first time a lot of the people that David talked about kind of visualized in front of me. I became friends with David around the time I did a anthology of New Jersey poets called Bluestones and Salté that David was in, and he was really helpful in putting it together. And I remember talking at some point, and he said, what kind of art do you want to have on your book cover? And I said, I'd really love to use George Siegel's sculpture, The Diner. And he said, here's his phone number, and called him up, got permission. Our fees were waived, and this was the result of David's help in getting this on the cover. And I wanted to read a poem that I put, all the poems I put in the anthology of David's related to him growing up in New Jersey, in Newark. And I think David, one of the things that he kind of liked about me, that I had gone to William Patterson, where he had taught for many years and survived. And this is from a poem, it's part 3 of from Friday Night Quartet, and this is called Orange Colored Sky. My mother said, I couldn't keep my head off your face. I couldn't keep my hand off your face. I was always caressing your chin. We used to listen to a television program, you and I, and the guy sang a song called Orange Colored Sky, and his name was George. He'd say, George. So we wrote a letter to him, and I wrote it to you and I said, I am 5 years old and a classical musician who plays the violin, and I really prefer Bach and Beethoven, but I like the way you sing Orange Colored Sky. And he read it out loud to all the people in the audience, and you heard it, and he said, this is a letter from a little boy, David Shapiro, Hobson Street, Newark, which got a laugh. And I just wanted to conclude with something. I was thinking a lot about David. And the one thing I thought about his poetry, I went to a Hebrew day school and studied Talmud for many years. And David's had that feeling of Talmud, which is sort of everything, myths, stories, law, commentary back and forth. And I was reading an interview that David did, I hope this is going to be in that collection of interviews with Jacket, with Kent Johnson. And this caught my eye, and I copied this to read here. David said, poets are never poor. We practice an arte plena, or full art. Our bread may not rise, but it is poor bread in a good sense, not bitter bread of exile. Let poetry fall like the empires, with large strokes like your own. Oh, the late poets of the Roman Empire.
Joel, I was really glad to hear you bring up Friday Night Quartet. Joseph, Lisa, and I were talking about it the other day, and it's one of David's most beautiful, elegant, elegiac poems, and it was obviously too long to read here. But it is astonishing, and if you don't, everybody knows it. Joanna, do we want to ask Lindsay and then I'll offer the Shiva closing prayers, right?
Sounds good. It's up to them though.
Yeah, I know. Linz, Daniel, do you guys want to speak up? I don't think you're blocked. I don't think anyone's blocked anymore. Oh, can we unblock everyone?
Oh yeah, I'll unmute everyone.
Yeah, unmute everybody. And Lindsay, do you want to say something? Daniel? Kid, I think of you as a kid. Everyone's not unblocked yet.
No, I just unmuted everyone.
Oh.
They have to unmute themselves, but they're able to now.
Unmute yourself now.
Okay.
Daniel, you want to go first and then let your mom go? Lindsay,
Yeah,
you want
that would be great. I'm going to be very brief. I just wanted to thank everyone for coming here. I just want to thank Joanna and Mark for organizing this. This was deeply moving for me to hear all of this. And I just wanted to say that I think my dad will live on through everyone that showed up today eternally. And I just want to thank everyone for coming up today.
Yeah, I also just want to thank Joanna and Mark for this tribute, and for all of you who participated. And, this has brought back like decades and decades of, our lives together, before he had Parkinson's. And, you were all with him, you sort of lifted him up. And I'm just sorry that, as his life became sort of more limited due to Parkinson's, that, he wasn't able to communicate with you and, have conversations and write and see you, the way he had before. But he was constantly thinking about you. You were very much, part of his whole spirit. So, thank you so much.
And I just need to say one thing, which is that I didn't do anything. Joanna organized all of this. I just helped her out. We've known each other a long time, and I was just glad to be able to step up and help her out. I want to thank Kate Farrell, who helped us out a lot too, with a lot of stuff. You guys know, well, maybe you don't, some of you do. In Judaism, David is now in what is in the bardo, or whatever we call it. He's wandering around. He's finding his spot and his space, and he's looking for all of us to keep guiding him along this way. So our love is guiding him. So all the love that we just all gave today, this is part of David's path. I'm going to read 3 verses that we usually close the Shiva with, and then I think, Joanna, we're just going to leave it open a little while for people to if they want to. And I think so much, but here we go. So part one, and if you are a believer, here we go. 1, may the Almighty mend all that tears his people Israel, and then to wish for long years of life for those who have mourned. And 2 verses from Isaiah. Your sun shall set no more, your moon no more withdraw, for the Lord shall be a light to you all forever, and your days of mourning shall be ended. And finally, as a mother comforts her son, so I will comfort you. You shall find comfort in Jerusalem. And let us all say amen.
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 So I think
Amen.
people can just stay and unmute themselves if they want to just talk briefly, and then we'll call it a day.
Thank you, Joanna.
Thank you so much.
And also Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
I think
Thank
Kenneth
you
would
all.
have liked this. I thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Joanna.
Both.
We should figure out what we want to do with the recording too at some point.
Yeah.
I should stop the recording now.
All right, you're all free now. Cut loose.